Welcome to History Unleashed, the channel where we unearth the most dramatic moments of the past. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a topic that shaped the course of history in the most unexpected ways: military blunders. Battles are often swayed by forces beyond human control, like brutal weather or sheer bad luck, but sometimes it's a single human error that turns a certain victory into a catastrophic defeat. Miscommunication, arrogance, or just plain ignorance can rewrite history in the blink of an eye. In this episode, we're counting down 5 of the worst military mistakes ever made, moments where a single decision led to disaster. So, buckle up for a journey through history's biggest battlefield blunders. Let's unleash the past. Let's start with number 5. The charge of the Light Brigade, a tragic episode from the Crimean War in 1854. The Crimean War erupted when Russia, under Tsar Nicholas III, sought to expand south into Ottoman territory, hoping to secure access to the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Alarmed by this expansion, Britain and France allied with the Ottomans to stop Russia's ambitions. By October 1854, Allied forces had landed in the Crimea and were besieging the strategic Russian port of Sevastopol, a key naval base. But near the harbor of Balaclava, the Russians launched a daring counterattack, capturing several hills and artillery pieces abandoned by retreating Allied troops. Enter Lord Raglan, the British commander. From his elevated position, he could see the captured guns being dragged away by Russian forces. He ordered the Light Brigade, a swift but lightly armored cavalry unit of 670 men, to charge and reclaim the artillery before it was lost. It should have been a straightforward mission, but the order was vague. Down in the valley, the Light Brigade's commander, Lord Cardigan, couldn't see the guns Raglan meant. When he sought clarification, the messenger, an impatient officer named Captain Nolan, gestured broadly toward a different, heavily fortified Russian position at the valley's end, bristling with artillery and infantry. Charging there with light cavalry was suicidal. But Cardigan, bound by duty and unwilling to question orders, led his men into what poet Alfred Tennyson later called the Valley of Death. Under fire from 3 sides, artillery, muskets, and grape shot, the brigade was decimated. In just 20 minutes, 110 men were killed and 161 wounded, a staggering 40% casualty rate. Yet their bravery was undeniable. They reached the Russian guns, sabred the crews, and even held off a Russian cavalry counterattack before retreating through the same deadly gauntlet. The charge became a symbol of British courage, but also of incompetence, earning the army the label "lions led by donkeys." It exposed the disconnect between aristocratic officers and their men, a perception that lingered into the First World War, fueling calls for military reform. A single unclear order had turned a tactical strike into a slaughter. Moving to number 4, we're going back over 2,000 years to 9 AD for the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, one of the Roman Empire's most devastating defeats. At this time, Rome was at the peak of its power, having conquered vast swaths of Europe and the Mediterranean. Under Emperor Augustus, the empire was pushing into the wild forested lands of Germania, east of the Rhine River, to bring Roman civilization to the barbarian tribes. General Publius Quinctilius Varus, a trusted Roman governor, was tasked with pacifying the region. He commanded 3 elite legions, about 35,000 men, seasoned soldiers who had crushed resistance across the empire. Varus relied on Arminius, a German noble who seemed loyal to Rome. Arminius was the son of a defeated chieftain, taken as a hostage to Rome, educated there, and even granted citizenship. He served in the Roman legions and became Varus's advisor. But Arminius had a secret agenda. While pretending to serve Rome, he united rival Germanic tribes in a rebellion. He fabricated reports of a minor uprising in the east, urging Varus to march his legions through the dense, unfamiliar Teutoburg Forest to suppress it. Varus, confident in his control and ignoring warnings from another German noble about Arminius's treachery, took the bait. As the Romans marched in a long, stretched column, spanning up to 12 miles, through narrow, muddy paths, Arminius slipped away to join his warriors. The Germans attacked with javelins, then closed in with swords, exploiting their knowledge of the terrain and Roman tactics. A storm raged overhead, adding to the chaos. The Romans, unable to maneuver, were slaughtered. Many were captured and sacrificed to Germanic gods, their severed heads nailed to trees in a gruesome display. Varus, overwhelmed by the disaster, fell on his sword, as did many officers. Only a handful of survivors escaped to report the calamity. The loss of 35,000 men halted Roman expansion east of the Rhine forever, showing that even the mightiest empire could be brought low by betrayal and overconfidence. At number 3, we have the Battle of Hattin in 1887, a turning point in the Crusades. The Kingdom of Jerusalem, a Crusader state established after the First Crusade, was in turmoil after the deaths of King Baldwin IV and his young son, Baldwin V. A succession crisis pitted two factions against each other, and Guy of Lusignan emerged as king, backed by powerful figures like the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Gerard de Riedfort, and Reynaud of Chatillon. But Guy held a grudge against Raymond of Tripoli, a seasoned baron who had opposed his rise. Meanwhile, the legendary Muslim commander Saladin was uniting factions across the Islamic world, rallying them for a holy war to reclaim Jerusalem. Despite a truce with Guy, tensions flared when Reynaud broke it by raiding a Muslim caravan, possibly even attacking Saladin's sister. Saladin, unable to ignore such an affront, assembled a 30,000-strong army and marched on Tiberias, capturing the town and besieging its fortress, which belonged to Raymond. Raymond, whose wife was trapped inside, urged Guy to stay put in their well-supplied, fortified camp at Sephoria. Historically, Crusaders had repelled Muslim invasions by avoiding open battle, relying on their castles to outlast the enemy. But Guy, swayed by Gerard and Reynaud and distrusting Raymond, made a fatal decision. He marched his 20,000-strong army into the scorching desert, leaving Jerusalem lightly defended. Under constant harassment from Saladin's skirmishers and with no water, the Crusaders camped overnight at the Horns of Hattin, surrounded by Saladin's forces. By morning, dehydrated and demoralized, they were overwhelmed. Most were killed or enslaved, though Guy and some nobles were spared. Reynaud, the truce-breaker, was beheaded by Saladin himself. The defeat left the Crusader kingdom vulnerable, and Saladin captured Jerusalem weeks later, triggering the Third Crusade. Guy's grudge and poor judgment had cost him everything. Number 2 takes us to 1788 for the bizarre and tragic Battle of Karansebeș during the Austro-Turkish War. The Austrian Empire, allied with Russia, was fighting to curb Ottoman influence in the Balkans. A 100,000-strong Austrian army camped near Karansabesh in modern-day Romania, preparing to advance. As night fell, a group of cavalry scouts went ahead but found no enemy. Instead, they encountered merchants selling alcohol. Seizing the chance to unwind, they started drinking, but were soon interrupted by infantrymen who wanted to join in. The cavalry refused to share, and a heated argument broke out, escalating into a fistfight. In the chaos, a shot rang out, and an infantryman shouted, "Turks!" possibly to scare the cavalry into sharing. But the cry triggered panic. The Austrian army was a melting pot of nationalities: Germans, Hungarians, Italians, and more, speaking different languages, which amplified the confusion. Soldiers grabbed their weapons, believing an Ottoman attack was imminent. Some fired at shadows, mistaking comrades for enemies. An officer, caught up in the hysteria, ordered artillery to bombard a mass of fleeing men, thinking they were Ottomans. The shells tore through their own ranks. By sunrise, the horrific truth emerged. Hundreds, possibly thousands, were dead. No Ottomans in sight. 2 days later, the real Ottoman army arrived, easily defeating the demoralized survivors and capturing Karansabesh. Some historians debate the story's accuracy, as the earliest account appeared 40 years later, suggesting it might be exaggerated or apocryphal. But it highlights the deadly reality of friendly fire, a problem that persists even in modern warfare, despite advanced communication. Finally, at number 1, we have Napoleon's catastrophic invasion of Russia in 1812. Napoleon Bonaparte, the military genius who had conquered much of Europe, assembled the largest army in European history, 680,000 men, to force Russia back into his continental system, an economic blockade meant to cripple Britain. Russia's Tsar Alexander I had joined the system after a 1807 defeat, but began trading with Britain again by 1810, infuriating Napoleon. Determined to bring the Tsar to heel, Napoleon invaded on June 24, 1812, under the pretext of liberating Poland, aiming for a quick victory to force Russia into submission. The Grande Armée marched east, winning skirmishes like the bloody Battle of Borodino, which claimed 70,000 casualties in a single day. But the Russians, under General Kutuzov, refused to engage decisively, retreating deeper into their vast territory. They employed a scorched earth policy, burning villages, crops, and supplies to starve the invaders. Napoleon's army, expecting a short campaign, was unprepared. Supply wagons lagged miles behind, and starvation set in as soldiers scavenged for food instead of resting. Cossack raiders picked off stragglers, further weakening the ranks. Napoleon reached Moscow in September, capturing the city, but found it abandoned. Much of it burned, either by accident or sabotage, leaving no shelter. The Tsar refused to negotiate, knowing time and winter were on his side. With supplies dwindling and the Russian winter looming, Napoleon ordered a retreat in October. The army, issued only summer uniforms, faced brutal cold, disease, and constant attacks. Soldiers ate their horses, and some resorted to cannibalism. By November, only 27,000 men survived. 380,000 were dead, and 100,000 captured. The disaster shattered Napoleon's aura of invincibility, emboldening his enemies. It led to the War of the Sixth Coalition, his defeat, and exile to Elba in 1814. Napoleon's overconfidence had destroyed the greatest army of its time. And there you have it, 5 of history's worst military blunders, where human error turned the tide of battle in the most disastrous ways. From the charge of the Light Brigade to Napoleon's Russian nightmare, these moments remind us how fragile victory can be. What other military disasters would you add to this list? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through history, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for more episodes of History Unleashed. Until next time, keep exploring the past.